Hi everyone, a very good evening to all of you. How are you all? Hello Saksham. Right. So, we are going to talk about how to comprehend, how to understand and tackle difficult RC passages, right? The RCs that you think are dense, complex, more inference based questions after them. This is the kind of RC that I have brought for you today. Okay. And uh, you'll be surprised that the source of this RC passage is not any newspaper, it's not any magazine, even. It is from an academic research paper. Okay. But don't get worried just because it's from an academic paper, right? It is quite lucid, quite clearly delineated, expressed, and we will see how to break it down, how to simplify it for ourselves. Right? Hello, Tanishk. Hello. Okay. So before we begin, I have some questions for you. Right? And they will also help you in your comprehension of this RC passage. Right? Okay. So tell me, what is the mind and how is it different? Is it the same as the brain or is it different? Yes. Tell me. Good evening, Uday. So think about it and share with me in the chat box what is the mind and is it the same as the brain or is it different? I may have answered the latter part for you. Will be participative today? Yes, nobody will be silent. There's no negative marking here. Let's see what you say. Mind is something by which we think, using which we think. Okay, but do we not think using our brains? In that case, why would your teachers tell you use your brains? Don't ask me such silly questions. Yes. So, uh, you can give an, I mean, there's a very common analogy that is given here. The brain is often called the hardware, right? It's an organ, correct, Rakshit? So brain is a physical organ, isn't it? It's the hardware, all the wiring, right? The neuron network. Okay. So it is a physical organ. But is mind tangible? You can't, I mean, you can hold a person's brain, although it sounds very gory to me, but you can't hold a person's mind, isn't it? Their mind is essentially their thoughts, their emotions, their subjective experience of the world around them. That is what the mind is about, right? Okay, all right. So then, where does this word come into the picture? Yeah, consciousness. Consciousness, we often use this word, right? So, what do you think it means? Consciousness. So it's a sort of a pre-exercise before we begin your RC passage because see, if let's say an RC passage talks about some terms, it is important that we know the difference between these terms, right? We know the meaning of the word consciousness because it has been used time and again in this passage. Okay, consciousness means awareness. Okay, awareness of my surroundings, isn't it? Awareness of our surroundings. All right. So, tell me, is if let's say two people experience pain, it's a very similar kind of an injury. These people are in very similar physical and mental health. Okay, and they get injured and they experience pain. Okay, will the sensation be exactly the same for them? They are feeling pain because the injury. They are aware of the injury, right? And that's why they are feeling that pain. So, will the pain be exactly the same for them? Tell me. Hmm. Two people, very similar physically, mentally, maybe emotionally as well. They get injured. Will their experience of pain be exactly the same? Be participative. Come on. Okay, let me see if somebody has answered this on our English channel. Right. So let's see if. All right. No, absolutely. Okay. So this is the answer that I was looking for. Just one word. No. Their experience will not be the same. So our quality, the quality of our experiences are very different, isn't it? So see, both you and I broadly agree upon what the color red is, right? If we see the red light, we'll be able to say, oh, this is the red light. But do both of us see the exact shades? Yes. So there I like your answer. No, I guess. I'll clarify this. I'll clarify this. So do two people see the exact same shades when they look at the color red? We'll never know actually. So the answer here was also not no. The answer is we can never know. How can you know this? Exactly what are they experiencing? What is it like? What is it like to feel this pain, or what is it like when they see the red color? We can never know this actually, right? I mean, till now at least we haven't found a way to know this. Okay, because this is very qualitative, this is very subjective, first hand experience. Okay, so this is also called qualia. And why am I telling you all these things? Why not start away with the passage, right? I mean, right from the beginning, because these terms, they will appear in many of your RC passages that you practice: consciousness, qualia, subjective first hand sensations and experiences. So you should know about this philosophical term. It's used very often in philosophy. And you've had passages in ZAT specifically that talk about consciousness. Okay, ठीक है? Everybody's on board so far? Everybody is with me. So now let's talk about how to tackle a difficult RC passage, right? See, we are going to talk about abstract things such as consciousness. So you may have realized that probably it's not going to be very easy, but we can simplify it for ourselves, right? So let's see how. So we'll read the passage together, and then I have four questions for you today. You'll answer these questions after we are done. Okay, we'll read it together. We'll understand it together. We'll identify how we could have made it easier for us, right? The important bits. This is what we'll do. Chalo, fir, let's go. Where does the mind stop and the rest of the world begin? Where does the mind stop and the rest of the world begin? Yeah, so where is this mind of ours located? Where does it stop? And where does the surroundings, the rest of the world begin? The question invites two standard replies. So it's not that nobody has tried to answer this. The question invites two standard replies. So always remember, when you read the first passage, the first paragraph, sorry, you have to read at least the first couple of sentences carefully. They introduce the topic more often than not. So there are two standard answers to this. Some accept the boundaries of skin and skull. That, my skin is the boundary of where my mind stops. My skull is the boundary, skin and skull. And say that what is outside the body is outside the mind. This is what some people say, that this is where the mind stops. Okay, and the rest of the world begins. Others are impressed by arguments suggesting that the meaning of our words just ain't in the head. Okay, all right, and hold that this externalism about meaning carries over into an externalism about mind. Now, this bit appears complex. So what do? I break it for myself. There is a comma to help me here, isn't it? So what will I say? Others are impressed by arguments suggesting that the meaning of our words just ain't in the head. How? Who? Because who decides the meaning of a word? Can I uh, simply, I decide the meaning of a word? Can I do that? Or is it determined by the environment that I live in, the society that I live in? To give you an example, so this is what I do. Okay, so when I was reading it, I thought that, okay, what is this person trying to say, that the meaning of words is not in the head? Then I thought that yes, when we look at the meanings of words, a single person does not decide what a word means. It's actually at a societal level a lot of times that it is decided, okay, this is what the word will mean, right? So that means that the meaning of something is not just in my head, it is decided at a societal level. This is what I thought when I was reading it. Okay, and for your understanding, I can also give an example here. So for instance, let's say you live on earth and there is another planet. Okay, uh, planet, alien, let's call it. Okay, both have water. Now, however, on your earth, water is what? Two hydrogen molecules or atoms. Okay, and two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom, right? Whereas, let's say on their planet, it has a different chemical formula. Although it tastes, acts exactly like water, let's say their chemical formula is XYZ. So now, when you and the alien both say, I want water, you're using the same word, but aren't the meanings here different? So, who decides it? They're human beings, okay? And the chemical composition they found, they named it H2O. They're a different chemical composition and they named it XYZ. So, the meaning of our words is just ain't in the head, just not in the head, okay? And hold that this externalism about meaning is outside me, right? Meaning is outside me, decided at an environmental level. मेरे आसपास का environment, yes. It also carries over into externalism about mind. That means my mind, my thinking capabilities are also not inside me. They're probably even outside my body. So these are the two standard replies to where does the mind stop and the rest of the world begin. So far, so good. Any query, please ask. Jyoti, first tell me, is the first paragraph clear to you? That there are two answers to where does the mind stop and the rest of the world begin. And isn't it very interesting? A lot of times we think that, okay, the mind is in our body, not outside. But there is another view here, right? The other view is that the mind can be outside my body as well. This is what the author is saying, externalism. So when you find something complex, just unpackage it for yourself. So how I unpackaged it, that okay, where does the mind stop and the rest of the world begin? There are two answers to this, two viewpoints. That one is that it is in my body, inside my body, right? And the other answer is that no, it can even be outside my body. It can be determined by my environment. Determined by my environment. Now, does it make sense? So, this sort of visualization, okay, this flowchart sort of a thing, simplifying it. Oh, when I see an ism, what would it mean? Outside, external, outside. So, just simplifying it for yourself. Right? So, first learning here, we'll read the opening sentences very carefully. Second learning, we can visualize like this, drawing it in the form of a flowchart. Third learning, unpackaging. Externalism sounds like a very heavy word. Why not unpackage it? External, outside. Outside what? Outside my body. Yeah. Okay. Now let's go to the second paragraph then. Okay, what else is there to say? By embracing an active externalism, we allow a natural explanation of all sorts of actions. So when we embrace this externalism, and that to active externalism, where does the word active come from? Active. Where does this word come from? Action. It comes from action. So now again, please notice this, that the author now comes to a concept called active externalism. That when we embrace an active externalism, that actually provides a natural explanation of all sorts of actions. It provides a very natural explanation of all sorts of actions. Active hai, so it will provide an explanation for actions, right? One can explain my choice of words in Scrabble, for example, as the outcome of an extended cognitive process. So let's say you and I, we are playing Scrabble, right? Now, how do I decide which words I am making? I will rearrange my tiles. I will see, oh, this one, yeah, makes sense. I can make this word. So this is the process, right? So one can explain my choice of words in Scrabble, for example, as the outcome of an extended cognitive process involving the rearrangement of tiles on my tray. Anybody who plays Scrabble? Anybody who likes playing Scrabble? Yes, tell me. So if you have played it or if you enjoy playing it, I think you'll be able to relate with this. That okay, we rearrange tiles and then we feel, oh yes, this makes sense. I can make this word. So basically, my choice of words is ultimately governed by this rearrangement, isn't it? Of course, one could always try to explain my action, this rearrangement, in terms of internal processes and a long series of inputs and actions. Now, there one way to explain this could be that okay, there is something going on in my mind and in my head, for instance, inside my body, and that prompts these actions. That is actually prompting me to rearrange the tiles. So basically, the process is internal, the outcome is external. That could be one way to explain it. But so I have often told you that whatever comes before but is bullshit. I mean, uh, not to be this strong, but what I want to say is whatever comes after but is quite useful. Okay, so here comes the author's opinion. But this explanation would be needlessly complex. You're forcing this explanation that oh, the process is internal, just that the outcome is external. So as per the author, this is needlessly complex. If a similar process were going on in the head, we would feel no urge to characterize it in such a complex way. Okay, so what is the author arriving at? What is the author arriving at? Look at this. The opening and the closing sentences are very, very important. In a very real sense, the rearrangement of tiles on the tray is not part of action, it is part of thought. So, normally we are used to thinking this, that the thoughts, they occur inside our body and then they lead to an action in the outside environment. Are you with me? Tell me that I think something and the outcome then is an action in the outside environment. I want to know that you're getting this. Then only I'll proceed. This is our normal, usual thinking. But the author here is saying that this entire thing that is happening, you're rearranging tiles, you're then looking at which word makes sense. All of this is the thought, all of this is the thinking. This forms an entire system. Okay, so the rearrangement is not merely an action, it is not part of just action, it is part of thought. Okay, it is a part of your thinking process. So what are we trying to arrive at? That our thinking can be located outside us, our mind can be located outside us, and our actions could actually be a part of this thinking process. It is a part of thought, right? So this is what the paragraph says, and I know right now it might feel like, oh my god, this is a lot of information, this is a lot of understanding. But if you stick to this, unpackaging, not getting bogged down by these isms, right? And taking the help of examples. For instance, this Scrabble example, I actually visualized myself playing Scrabble and I realized, oh yes, all of this happens in real time. I'm rearranging, I'm then looking at okay, what makes sense, then I'm putting the word. So all of this is actually thinking, not uh, just an outward action, right? So that helps. Okay. Then let's come to the third paragraph. And after this, I'll ask you to summarize the first slide for me, right? There are just two slides. Okay. Some find this sort of externalism, active externalism, the term that author has just given us in the second paragraph. See, in the first paragraph, it was just externalism. In the second paragraph, which comes after this ellipsis, which means there must have been some information between this, but it has been deleted. In the second paragraph, we talk about active externalism. We are talking about actions, right? Okay, so some find this sort of externalism unpalatable, right? Some people think, what does unpalatable mean? Anybody? Yes. What does unpalatable mean? Be participative. It'll be more fun if you're participative. This is a difficult thing that we are going through, right? So if you help me, it will actually help you. Something that is palatable, literally speaking, is tasty. In a metaphorical sense, we mean that it is acceptable. Palatable means acceptable. So unpalatable would mean unacceptable, inacceptable, right? So some find this sort of externalism unpalatable. Some people think, can we say that our actions also are a part of our thought? One reason may be that many identify. Now, why do people find this unacceptable? One reason may be that many identify the cognitive with the conscious. Ooh, okay. So, many identify the cognitive thinking related to thinking with the related to thinking with the conscious. Many identify the cognitive with the conscious. Okay, so conscious is when I become aware of what is happening around me. And it seems far from plausible that consciousness extends outside the head in these cases. So, some people, they find it very hard to accept this, that consciousness, my becoming aware of my surroundings, my feeling pain, let's say, my identifying the color red, let's say, that extends outside the head, right? That's difficult to accept, isn't it? But now, see again, see, what did I tell you? But what comes after but is important. But not every cognitive process, at least on standard usage, please notice this, not every cognitive process, at least on standard usage, when we use the term in its standard sense, is a conscious process. Not every thinking related process in its standard usage is a conscious process. Can you tell me what this sentence means? See, when, let's say, you've probably forgotten a memory, right? And it suddenly comes back to you. It's not that you were thinking about it actively, okay, but it suddenly comes back to you. So it's not conscious because, it happened at a subconscious or unconscious level. It existed there, right? It comes back to you. So you retrieved this memory. Now, but it is actually a cognitive process, right? It is related to thinking, a memory that comes back to you. So, not every cognitive process, for instance, dreams, right? In our dreams, also, our mind is processing things. That's why we see dreams. But are we conscious at the time when we are, having dreams? No, we are not conscious. So, not every cognitive process, at least on standard usage, is a conscious process. Okay, so now, okay, what is the author doing? The author is actually presenting that, okay, people might have a problem with this concept, but actually, this problem is a little flawed, right? Because cognitive processes, they can be non-conscious as well. It is widely accepted that all sorts of processes beyond the borders of consciousness play a crucial role in cognitive processing, right? So many processes beyond the borders of consciousness, for instance, dreaming, they play such a crucial role in cognitive processing. So when we sleep and when we dream, our mind is actually processing important information, categorizing important information. And now the author gives you some instances also in the retrieval of memories, linguistic processes. For instance, we simply know the meaning of certain basic terms. So now it's not that I'm recalling the meaning of a word very consciously. I simply know it has now moved to my subconscious because I have known it for such a long time now. Skill acquisition, for instance, driving becomes a very subconscious, unconscious process for people, right? When they have learned it, when they've been doing it for a lot of years. So the author here, through multiple examples, see, the author is very generous. They have given you different examples to aid your understanding. So, this is what I do when I come across a complex passage. I cling to the examples like anything because they help me understand so much, isn't it? So, for instance, here I am able to understand that, oh, not every cognitive process is a conscious process. Okay. And these people who are confusing cognitive with the conscious, they are flawed in a way, right? They're this idea that cognitive is the conscious is not perhaps a good idea, and therefore, uh, the externalism that the author is talking about probably makes sense, at least in the author's opinion. So the mere fact that external processes are external, whereas consciousness is internal, whereas consciousness is internal, is no reason to deny that those processes are cognitive. Okay, so the last sentence here is very, very important. Okay, so if you see in these three paragraphs, it is not just the opening sentence that has been important, it is also the closing sentences that have been important, right? So, for instance, this here that the action, the tray, this rearrangement is not part of action, it is part of thought. Okay, similarly, here, just because a process is external, right? That does not mean that it is not cognitive. External processes outside my body can also be related to thinking. Okay. So far, so good. Are you there with me? Yes. So I have thrown a difficult passage at you today. Okay. And I've done this very consciously because while I know that currently you've just begun your preparation, many of you, and you're dealing with easy passages, I just wanted to show you what you should do when you come across something that is completely new information for you or is something very complex for you. How do you break it down? Okay, opening, closing sentences, visualization, unpackaging, taking the help of examples. These are certain skills that we can build, right? Okay, so now the last two paragraphs. More interestingly, okay, more interestingly. So the author is saying that, okay, some people object to this on this ground. Now, more interestingly, one might argue, one objection could be that what keeps real cognition processes in the head is the requirement that cognitive processes be portable. Yes. So some people might think that, our thinking processes must be portable. What does portable mean? That I should be able to carry them wherever I go. Yes. Imagine I go somewhere and my thinking processes are left somewhere else. So some people say that cognition processes are there in the head because it is required that cognitive processes should be portable. I should be able to carry them wherever I go. Here we are moved by a vision of what might be called the naked mind. Okay, so let's see what the naked mind means. A package of resources and operations we can always bring to bear on a cognitive task, regardless of the local environment. So let's say when you talk about various applications these days, they have a very basic version, right, which has the essential but basic features. So the author is saying that some people think that we should have at least this naked mind, this basic version all of us should have, which basically is it has certain resources and operations that we can always apply to a thinking task, no matter where we are, no matter what our local environment is, wherever we go, right? Some basic processes should be such that I'm always able to carry with me and always able to apply. On this view, the trouble with coupled systems, those processes that go with me, they are attached to me. So, on this view, the trouble. Okay. See again. Now, the author is again demolishing this argument. Again, the author is now going to say something against this. On this view, the trouble with coupled systems is that they are too easily decoupled. You can too easily detach them as well. The true cognitive processes are those that lie at the constant core of the system. Anything else is an add on extra. Okay. The true cognitive processes are those that lie at the constant core of the system. Anything else is an add on extra. Okay. So now the author is saying that, see, we operate in a system. So the true thinking processes lie at a constant core of this system. Anything else is actually extra. Right. So if you say, oh, there should be some resources and operations that I should be able to carry with myself, these can be very easily separated from you as well. Okay. So if I come to this idea of naked mind, there will emerge very few cognitive processes in that case. A lot of cognitive processes in that case, which are essential also, will also be left behind. If, let's say, this is the definition, portability is the criterion, right? So I know that you've processed a lot of information. Let me just simplify it for you. I'm just erasing some of the stuff that I've written here. Oh wait, let me not erase. Let me just you know make you understand what all parts were extremely essential here. So the passage began with a question: where does the mind stop and the rest of the world begin? Okay, and then we talk about the two standard replies. Then the author gives their version of this externalism, that the mind lies outside the body. They call it active externalism. Why active? Because they say that our actions are also a part of the thought. We think in a system, and the actions that we perform in that environment, the system, they are also a part of the thought. For instance, rearranging the tiles on a Scrabble. And the author says that some people have some problems with this idea of active externalism. That's because they are confusing cognitive with conscious. Okay, and they feel that consciousness is internal. But the author then demolishes this argument. Okay, the author says that just because something just because external processes are external and consciousness is internal, that does not mean that the external processes are not cognitive, because cognitive tasks are not always conscious. For instance, dreaming, for instance, skill acquisition, right? And then the author says, okay, another argument against active externalism could be that, our cognitive processes should be portable. In that case, there will be very few things left if we go by this criterion of portability, because everything else can be decoupled. Right? Okay. Now let's come to the finale, the last paragraph. There is something to this objection. Now the author is a very good arguer. Do you see this? That they are giving you counter arguments to their viewpoint, and then they are demolishing those counter arguments like anything. They have a viewpoint called active externalism. Then they say, acha, some people might find this unacceptable, some people might argue this, and then they destroy these arguments, or at least challenge these arguments. Now the author is a mature arguer. They say, there is something to this objection, that this idea that there should be this naked mind, where, which has these basic operations that I'm able to carry everywhere. So it's not that this is a completely baseless objection. But let's come to the next part. The brain, or brain and body, comprises a package of basic portable cognitive resources that is of interest in its own right. Yes, so yeah, the brain and body, they do have a basic package of cognitive resources that are portable also, because they can go wherever we go. These resources may incorporate bodily actions into cognitive processes, but these resources, the basic version also, can also involve actions into thinking processes. For example, when we use our fingers as working memory in a tricky calculation, so this action is also helping me think, right? This action is also a part of the thinking. But they will not encompass the more contingent aspects of our external environment, such as a pocket calculator. So now when you talk about portability, I can carry my fingers everywhere, but it's not necessary that I carry a pocket calculator everywhere. So they will not, so they will involve this idea, this portable wala idea, this will involve this idea that, oh, actions such as using my fingers, it's a part of thinking, but actions such as using a pocket calculator, because it is not portable, okay, not necessarily portable, it is not a part of thinking, it is not a part of thought. Still, now see, this is a sign of a mature arguer. You acknowledge your debater's count argument, whatever counter argument they are saying. Oh, yes, there is something to what you are saying. There is some, it's a good point. Still, okay, still, my argument still holds. The author is saying, still, mere contingency of coupling does not rule out cognitive status. Okay, so still you can't make it, you can't make thinking, okay, this counts as thinking, this does not count as thinking, simply because it can be moved with you, it can be coupled with you, or it can't be coupled with you. We can't say there's no using a pocket calculator is, it does not amount to thought, but using our fingers while calculations, that amounts to thought, that is a part of thought. It looks a little silly when we say this, isn't it? So that's what the author is also saying, that simply whether you can take something with you or not does not mean, take basically your body with you or not, does not mean that, oh, this counts as thinking using your fingers, but using a pocket calculator does not. Now look at what the author says. It's quite, maybe it's a little threatening also, but not in the passage. It says, in the distant future, we may be able to plug various modules into our brain to help us out. We can plug various modules into our brain. Let's say maybe it's a chip, a module for extra short term memory when we need it. For example, when a module is plugged in, the processes involving it are just as cognitive as if they had been there all along. Yes. So, although it is something that is not a natural part of your body, right? You are plugging it in. It is something extra, just like the pocket calculator. But when you use it, when you use this chip, for instance, it is just as cognitive. It is just as thinking, okay, in the related to thinking, as if they had been a part of your body, right? So I know that this was challenging, but if you really visualize the structure, that the author is making an argument here, okay, active externalism, our mind existing outside our body and our actions being a part of our thought, and then the author is actually responding to the counter arguments against the view of active externalism. If you realize this, then you will be able to understand this passage. Okay, so far so good. Any queries, please ask. Yes. Any query, please ask. All right, then in that case, let's move to the questions. Right. So, the author's response. Thank you so much, Vedu. So, the author's response to the portability objection suggests that. So, what does this response? We just talked about this response here. Yeah. Basically, the second slide. We've just read it. So, this response, what does it suggest? Read the options and then tell me the answer. Yes. Okay, let's see what you say. Uday has answered. What about others? So if you see, this here has been answered using two paragraphs. In the first paragraph, the author merely gives the objection, right? And the author says there is something to this objection. Yeah, it is not that it is completely invalid. But what does the author say later on? Remember fingers and pocket calculator distinction? That just because something is not attached, is not an inherent part of your body, that does not mean that the processes involved there can't be cognitive. That module wala example that is plugged into your brain. Now, Vedu, you've marked B. Only processes that are part of the brain's basic portable package can be considered truly cognitive. Is this the author's response? Or is this the argument of somebody who will object to, active externalism? This would be a counter argument against the author's views, right? Counter argument to the author's view. So, this is not the author's response. This is the second last paragraph, not the last paragraph. Just two responses. What about others? There's no negative marking here, right? And you should always have a game mindset, right? Think of it like a quiz that you're attempting. It's okay, even if you get it incorrect. No negative marking here. Can it be A? That it's flawed. This concept is flawed. It's a flawed vision of cognition. The author says, in fact, there is something to this objection. The author does not dismiss this idea of naked mind right away. Do you see this? The author does not go as far as saying, oh, ye to flawed hai. This is a flawed idea. The author does not do that. The author rather first acknowledges, okay, yes, there is something to this. It's not completely baseless, right? Then the author says, but, okay, then the author gives their response. So, saying that it is a flawed vision of cognition is too extreme. So, no. C, while the brain's constant core is a valid object of study, something that the author acknowledges, there is something to this objection. Its portability is not a defining criterion for cognition. The author says just because something is portable and the other thing is not, you can't say that the first thing is cognitive, for instance, using fingers, while the latter, using a pocket calculator, is not. Right? So, C. Excellent. Okay, what about D? The distinction between internal and external cognitive processes will be erased. Is this stated that it will be erased by future technologies? So, please look at the red flags. I want you to also look at the red flags in the incorrect options, that it is a flawed vision. It will be erased. Too extreme. Yes? So, no, this is extreme. This is not the answer. And therefore, C. Okay? Now, it is okay even if you got it incorrect, even if you thought of the incorrect answer, but you didn't answer it here in the chat box. As I said, that this is a tricky, complex passage. However, it does not mean that all the questions are complex, right? So, let's see. Maybe there are certain easy questions also out there. So, let's have a look at this one. Question 2. The author's argument that non conscious external processes can be cognitive implies that the standard usage of the term cognitive is primarily based on. Now, does this appear familiar to you? Standard usage. Did you see this term in the passage as well? Yes, you did see it. So, in such questions, you have to go back to that particular area, right? So, let's see where this term standard usage was used, right? So, here it is. But not every cognitive process, at least on standard usage, is a conscious process. It is widely accepted that all sorts of processes beyond the borders of consciousness play a crucial role in cognitive processing, right? Retrieval of memories, etc., etc. So, this bit is important then. It tells me the standard usage of the word cognition or cognitive process. All right, then. Yes. Tell me what should be the answer now. Let's see. Yes, Pranjal, absolutely. I remember you. Besides your name, your YouTube handle name is one of its kind, Necromancer. Hello, hello. How are you? Meanwhile, the others, please answer this question. Okay. No response. In that case, we'll do two questions only today. That's because I think C. All right. Oh, this is I think C. What about you, Vedu? Okay, let's have a look at this. Uh, Question 2. Now, standard usage basically said that standard usage also widely accepts this, that not every cognitive process has to be conscious, right? Even non conscious processes are cognitive. Standard usage also recognizes this. Okay, so the standard usage of cognitive is primarily based on, okay, let's look at C first. The potential for a process to be brought into consciousness, even if it remains unconscious during a task. Let's say the process is not brought into consciousness. Then can it not be called cognitive? If the process is not brought into consciousness, if it cannot be brought into consciousness, in that case, can we not call it cognitive? For instance, if you are driving simply based on your years of experience, you're not using any conscious processes at the moment. In that case, can I not call it cognitive? I can still call it cognitive. So, no. Okay. B says a direct analogy between the brain's unconscious processing and the external manipulation of physical objects. Okay. First of all, what is analogy? A comparison showing similarity. So, has any such analogy been given to you, first of all, when you read that those particular two, three sentences? I didn't see any analogy there, right? That, oh, the brain's unconscious processing is like externally manipulating physical objects, like rearranging those tiles. No such analogy was given. So I think B was very easy to eliminate. It's also important to know which options are the easy ones that you could have eliminated. For instance, D is also easy to eliminate. D says that the usual understanding, the standard understanding of cognitive is that there is the clear and demonstrable boundary. That, cognitive means that there is a boundary that separates conscious mental states from all other processes. So that means cognitive processes basically are conscious mental states, and that actually separates them from all other processes. So, no, the author is in fact denying this. The author is saying the opposite of this, that there is no such boundary, that cognitive processes have to be conscious. A is the answer here, that cognitive processes basically are defined by their functional contribution to the task, not the physical location, whether they are inside or outside, whether they are internal or external, okay, whether they are conscious or unconscious. That does not define whether a task is cognitive or not. What is it contributing? Is it helping me in achieving something through thinking, right? Is it helping me come up with a word during Scrabble? That is what is, the understanding of cognitive is based on, not its physical location. Is it internal or external? Not the accessibility to consciousness, conscious or unconscious, right? Okay. All right, do you want to do the remaining two questions? It's okay even if you don't want to, because I understand that this is a heavy passage. So you have to let me know, then only I'll proceed. All right, then let's do this. So, the author's preference for active externalism over the usual externalism. Usual, which one was the usual one? Para 1 also talked about an externalism, no? Then the author added the word active to it in the second para. So, why does the author prefer this active externalism over the usual externalism? What does it suggest? So, the author's preference suggests that the primary advantage of active externalism is its. So, now what should I do? Notice that I've written something here. Probably I'll find the answer to this question on the border of para 1 and 2. Yes, because the contrast is given there, isn't it? So, I'm just erasing all ink, right? If you notice here, in this externalism, others are impressed by arguments suggesting that the meaning of our words just ain't in the head. Remember H2O, XYZ. And hold that this externalism about meaning carries over into an externalism about mind. By embracing an active externalism, we allow a natural explanation of all sorts of actions, whatever actions are happening. For instance, this action of rearranging tiles, right? So, this is what the author has given to me. Okay, this was externalism, this is active externalism, which allows a natural explanation of all sorts of actions. So, now tell me what should be the answer to question 3. What do you say? Which one matches what we have just read? Uday says C, fastest fingers first, and Uday has won it. What about others? Ved, what do you say? Pushpa also says C. Absolutely correct. C is the answer here, right? Because that is what was given to us. Now that because of the this active, the idea of active is that it even says that actions are also a part of the thought, right? Actions are also a part of the thought. So it provides a very natural explanation for various sorts of actions, right? So this active externalism provides a natural explanation for actions, goal directed actions such as rearranging tiles. There is a goal behind it, right? You are rearranging the tiles because you want to make a word. So there is a goal behind it. And when there are goal directed actions that happen, as per our dear author, they are a part of the thought itself. Okay. Confused between B or C. All right. Okay, I understand. But is it compatible? We have see the latter part here is correct. This is a very dangerous kind of an option because here the latter part is correct that it allows okay, delete the word also. It allows external inputs, isn't it? Um, but it says compatibility with the traditional skin and skull view. Is it compatible with this view that our mind is actually the boundary of our mind is our skin and skull? Not at all, right? So it's not that this is the boundary and oh, all right, we'll also allow for some external inputs. That's not the idea. The idea is that all of this environment and the actions happening in this environment, they are a part of our thought. They constitute thinking. Okay, A says grounding in a well established semantic theory. Okay, what does this apply to? Semantic theory. Semantic is related to language and its meaning, right? So is this talking about active externalism? No, it is talking about the usual externalism, not the active one. Okay, so no. D, capacity to encompass all cognitive phenomena, including both conscious and non conscious processes. The part that we have just read, that part, right? Where we are choosing one over the other. Does it talk about conscious and non conscious processes, or does this discussion come later in the passage? This discussion comes later in the passage. This is not the primary advantage. Okay, so C. All right, and now the last question, and I am very hopeful that you will answer this correctly because this is something that we have discussed. The author's argumentative strategy in the passage is best described as. Yes, how is the author arguing? Tell me. Hmm. So, Uday says A. All right. Wait, what do you say? Ritu, Rakshit, Shivam, you all can also answer. Tanishk. Okay. So now look at this. The author, Pushpa also says it. Okay, all right. Let's have a look at this. The author presents two standard replies. That okay, one reply is the skin and skull boundary, the other is externalism, the usual externalism, isn't it? The usual one. Then the author talks about their own version or their own theory called active externalism, right? So, is the author saying that this is superior, the usual externalism? Not really. So, see, the author first presents the standard replies. Then they give their own theory called active externalism, which they say has such a good explanatory power. Okay, it provides a natural explanation of all sorts of actions. Then the author lists the objections of people, how people will have some objections to this kind of externalism, the active one. Okay, one objection could be related to consciousness, the other objection could be related to portability, and then the author challenges these objections, right? That okay, refute these objections. So, should the answer then be A, demonstrating the logical superiority of the second? The second was the usual externalism, not active externalism. So, no. B says introducing a controversial thesis. Okay, a controversial assertion. Why is it controversial? Because there are two possible viewpoints. Okay, illustrating its explanatory power. Now, the controversial thesis here, I'm sorry, the controversial thesis means your viewpoint. My bad. Thesis means your viewpoint. So, what is the author's viewpoint? Active externalism. Now, why is it controversial? Because some people might find it unpalatable, people might have objections. But the author first illustrates its explanatory power through the Scrabble example. And then the author defends it against key objections. Okay, two major objections, one regarding consciousness, the other regarding portability. C says critiquing the traditional view of the mind before proposing a radical alternative based on futuristic technology. No, active externalism is not based on futuristic technology. There is just one example given at the end. That does not mean that the whole concept is based on futuristic technology. D. Analyzing a philosophical question by first dismissing two standard replies and then proposing a synthesis, a novel means new, synthesis of both. Is the author combining the two views, skin and skull plus the usual externalism? Combining these two standard replies? Not really. Synthesis means combining. So, eliminated. B is the answer. All right, so this was quite a challenging passage for you. It was difficult to understand, and then the questions were also of a high level, right? So, why did I take it right now? Because that's what a lot of you have been telling us in the comments that you are facing problems with the dense passages. So, this just provides you a window into how to comprehend those dense passages in the first place, right? Question solving is something that you improve at with practice. But first, the idea was to make you understand and to tell you, give you some tools as to how to understand. I eliminated B because of illustration. I understand, but isn't the author illustrating? Illustrate means to explain through an example. So the Scrabble example is actually telling us the explanatory power of active externalism, right? Okay. And this is a very punchy, short book, okay, by neuroscientist Lisa Feldman Barrett called Seven and a Half Lessons About Brain. So basically, it has seven essays, short essays about the brain. So if you are interested in the workings of the brain, the distinction between the brain and the mind, consciousness, etc., then you can read this. Okay. All right, so I hope I was able to give you some window into how to simplify complex passages for you through focusing on the opening closing sentences, right? Visualization, unpackaging, Okay. And of course, forming a mental structure. So basically, it will be a part of visualization here and clinging to the examples. So this is what will help you. Okay. I'll see you next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Till then, bye bye.